Welcome to the GMAT Strategy Podcast. You're here because you believe there's a better way to study for the GMAT, and so do we. We created the GMAT strategy to maximize your results and minimize your effort so you can get to the fun parts about business school and life as quickly as possible. My name is Isaac Puglia, and I've been teaching GMAT classes and tutoring privately for the GMAT for almost a decade, and I've achieved a 99th percentile score on the GMAT and helped thousands of students get into the business schools of their choice. I'm excited to be a part of your MBA journey since we all at TGS think our world can benefit from the best possible business leaders that we can find. If this show is bringing you value, please share it with your friends and family who are studying so that together we can make this process as easy and as painless as it can possibly be. Let's go. Today, I want to talk about improving your attention to detail. Now, some of you might really resonate with this, and others of you might be thinking, I really don't need help with this. And that's fine. What I want to discuss is how crucial attention to detail is in most of our work, and the GMAT is really no exception to that. And one of the concepts I'm going to lead with here is how you can improve your attention to detail, even if you're already in a really good place with it. Attention to detail is going to help your speed, it's going to help your accuracy, it's going to help your confidence, it's going to help your consistency, it's going to help many, many things that are going to get you faster, better GMAT results and just make you a better business person overall, which ultimately is what this process is about. So let's dive in. The key for the GMAT is to focus on the right details. And if you've been studying for some time, that might really resonate with you. I think the DI, Data Insights section, is an especially good example of this because so much of it is about being able to ignore what's not relevant to the situation at hand. Now, the way to do this is a fairly straightforward system. I'm going to walk through each of the steps, explain them a little bit, and then I will give you a little bit of extra credit if you want to go further with this at the end of the episode. The very first step in developing a powerful system for improving your attention to detail is developing what I call the gradient or continuum mindset. This is actually a major reason why I did last week's episode. So if you haven't listened to that yet, I would definitely recommend pausing and listening to that if what I am about to say resonates with you, because I'm going to go long on the difference between binary thinking and continuum thinking and how that's going to play out in a valuable way in your prep overall. But for now, I'll just give a quick thin slice of it in case you don't want to go to that episode so that we're all set up for success with how to improve your attention to detail. The gradient mindset is especially important for a lot of you because in your peer group, you probably have the highest attention to detail and are probably seen as a leader either naturally or as a part of the structure of the organization or both. And that means that you might think you either don't need to improve this or maybe that you cannot improve your attention to detail, which can be a limiting mindset to have. So let's think about the difference between binary thinking and continuum thinking. And if you did listen to last week's episode, I'm going to go through this very, very quickly. The first example would be, can my attention to detail improve? Would be more like a yes or no. If you switch away from that to how could my attention to detail improve, it opens you up to a new world of possibilities. Maybe you can only improve at 0.0001%. But what would be the compounding positive effect of that over time? Something to think about. Getting more specifically into our topic for today, not can my quant performance improve, but how can I improve my quant performance? Similarly, not can my data insights performance improve, but how? How can my data insights performance improve? It automatically switches you into a mindset of continuous long-term improvement and searching for the next level of performance. And for most of you, that's why you're here. You're either looking for the next level of performance in terms of your score or the next level of performance in terms of your efficiency. Or maybe there's something else. One major way is probably improving your attention to detail because details matter a ton in GMAT questions. So when you're asking, how could my quant performance improve? One way is improving your attention to detail. How could my verbal performance improve? One way is improving your attention to detail. So we're going to dive deep into this concept of how. How can you improve your attention to detail, given that it is so valuable? An example of the value of attention to detail on the GMAT is the fact that there's no partial credit on questions. In a typical school math test, I could get all the way to the right answer and then mess up the last calculation and maybe get 9 or 9.5 points out of 10, depending on the grading system that I'm in. On the GMAT, if I do everything right and I get all the way to the end and then I write the wrong number, the entire question is wrong. And if we move that to the data insight section where there's no partial credit on multi-part questions, I can get 2 out of those 3 parts of that question right, and the third one wrong, and the entire question is wrong. So attention to detail is going to be of particular value in data insights for a lot of you, but it is going to apply in the quant and verbal sections as well. Another point to consider when considering the value of attention to detail vis-a-vis the GMAT is that many questions require complex reasoning. There's many steps involved, and just one mistake can domino through the entire problem and end up creating a lot of issues with time, with confidence, with accuracy. And that's both within a section on any given exam or within your practice sections or your prep overall stretched out across start, middle, end, etc. So let's make sure that you're set up for success for wherever you are in the process, hopefully very early. But even if you've been studying for a while, I think you'll find this conversation quite valuable. Have you ever read a question wrong and then done all the right math on it? Because I haven't. Just kidding. Just kidding. Part of the reason that I am good at the GMAT now and great at coaching people through it is that I made all the mistakes multiple times and have developed many systems for preventing that. But I'm guessing most of you have at some point misread a question, but then done all the correct math on that misread question. And what is the key to resolving that? At the end of the day, it comes back to attention to detail and systematizing that attention to detail so that you don't have to be thinking about it during the test. You've already conditioned yourself to have the appropriate attention to detail in your practice. And so on test day, it just happens automatically. That's what we're going for here. Similarly, have you ever known the right answer to a reading comp, but misread one of the answer choices? Just missed a word. The word just didn't appear in your brain for whatever reason. That's about attention to detail. This is particularly important under time pressure because attention to detail often becomes even more difficult when we face what can often be exceptional time pressure on this test. As a metric, if you're wondering how much you should focus on this, if you're missing more than one question in any given quant section, any given verbal section, or any given DI section because of your lack of attention to detail, then you should improve it, in my opinion, because one question within each section as a result of lack of attention to detail is very, very difficult to overcome. We're all human. I think most of us would agree that our bodies and brains didn't really evolve to sit in front of a computer for hours on end answering really difficult reasoning questions. I guess we could make the argument that that's not true, but regardless of what you think about evolution, it's a difficult situation. And it's very, very difficult to be perfect on any given day at any given time. Not saying it's not possible. It definitely is. Not saying you shouldn't shoot for perfection. I think you should. But a reasonable expectation is even with the best system and the best effort, you might still end up dropping one question per section because of something like this. Hopefully not. Hopefully what I'm going to give you today is going to help you transcend that and become that best level that you're capable of. But if you're missing more than one, which virtually every student I meet every single year, regardless of the context, is doing, regardless of where they are in the prep process as well, Then I think you should work on your attention to detail, because if you're missing more than one question per section as a result of a lack of attention to detail, then your score does not represent your actual ability levels. And if that's the case, then in a way you're lying to your target programs and you're making them believe that you're not as good at the test as you actually are, which is a very preventable and resolvable form of dishonesty that disempowers both parties. You are disempowered by missing questions you know how to do, and the school is disempowered by thinking you're a worse candidate than you actually are. So let's resolve this. Step zero is developing the gradient mindset, not can I improve my attention to detail, but how? How can I improve my attention to detail? How could it be better? How could it impact my results? The next step after you make that mindset shift, if you are not in that mindset already, is you want to improve your note taking. A lot of people don't like to take notes during the exam, and there's a lot of different reasons that people don't like to take notes. Here's the deal. If your lack of taking notes, if you're not taking notes right now and you're already getting the desired score that you want, don't change what you're doing. Or if you're getting the desired results in some other regard. If you're not getting the results you want, change it. Consider that taking better notes could theoretically improve your score. Let's talk about how that can happen. The key with notes is experimentation. You want to give this at least a few weeks, and you want to be okay starting with too much note taking or too little note taking and then refining it over time. Exceptions to this would be if you have a really strong coach or a really strong program of study that you really believe in and that you really like, and they've given you advice around note taking. And again, you've seen results with it. You want to judge every system and strategy by the results it produces. If you genuinely engage with the advice I'm giving you, not just kind of engage with it, but if you genuinely engage with the advice that I give you and you don't see results, then that's not the right advice for you. Maybe you should take some other advice. My guess is if you genuinely engage with this, you're going to improve. It's very difficult not to improve with engaging with this on the proper level. And I'll make some recommendations about what the proper level is later. The only way to know what the right amount of note taking for you personally is to data collect. This is something that even within strong systems that are kind of like battle tested industry systems that have been around for a while, even within those systems, I find there's a lot of individual variance from student to student. So the key here, the key that will really help you fast track this, is to look at your notes that you took on problems during your review process, not just thinking about how you're taking notes during the question because you're in a huge rush to just get through the prep process. There is a certain amount of haste and agency that I think can be valuable with your prep process. It's almost like an emotional drive to complete it, which can be a very positive thing when it's kept in check. But the minute you know that you are going too fast is when it's hurting your attention to detail. And you are conscious, even if it's on a low level, that you're burning through a lot of questions without actually building knowledge. That's a very dangerous thing. That's what I did. That's why I can speak to this with authority. I meet probably thousands of people every year who are doing this to themselves. And it's a very difficult thing to fail and then have to go back to the beginning and do it the right way. It's not that you're a bad person if you've done that. It's really has nothing to do with how good of a person you are. It's a very understandable thing to want to rush through the process, and I recommend that you battle that. I recommend that you make sure that you have a structured review process for every single GMAT practice problem that you do. And if you're looking for those are in the individual GMAT quant for GMAT focus episode, verbal focus, and DI focus episodes from, I think, March of 2024. They're a few weeks back in the audio feed here. If you don't have structured review processes, please listen to those episodes. I'll give you some no-fail approaches for that, and I'll keep it simple but also high leverage for you. If you're already engaging with those, then you are doing the right thing. If you are working with another provider and they've got a structured review approach that you are actually engaging with, the way it is recommended, then by all means, feel free to continue with that if you're getting great results. If you're not getting great results, then please check out those episodes and they will help tremendously. The reason to look at your notes during that review process is it's kind of like watching game film as an athlete, or maybe like film of yourself giving a presentation, if that's a better analogy for you personally, something you can relate to more. It's going to give you a higher perspective. You're going to be a little bit separated from the performance mindset, and you're probably going to be able to pick up on cues and make better observations about yourself after the fact. It's not that you can't make valuable and productive observations during the perform process. You probably should be doing that. But really, the game changer and the key is to look at it during review, because that way you can also tell how many questions you got right in the session, how many questions you got wrong, what your average time per question is, and you can integrate that data into assessing how good are your notes and how could you improve them. Eventually, you'll figure out the ideal for your note taking. Again, the key is the gradient. How could my note taking be better? And you want to just never stop asking yourself that question. Even if you can't come up with any ways to make it better for several weeks, you want to keep asking yourself that question again until you are getting the desired result that you want. So that's the simple approach to improving your note taking, which will automatically improve your attention to detail. Because what's taxed arguably most heavily during the GMAT is our short-term memory in our brain. It's at least one of the things that's taxed most heavily in terms of our physical and mental resources. And our short-term memory can only hold a certain number of things in it at any given time. Becoming a good note taker allows you to offload some of that processing power to the page, which frees up bandwidth in your brain's computer, if you will, to be able to do more problem solving, more higher level reasoning, pretty much the stuff that ends up producing better results on GMAT exams and GMAT questions. If you're not sure how to improve your notes, or you've been engaging with this for a while and you're stuck, feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to help. Just shoot us a DM on current social channels at the GMAT strategy. Step 2, focus on the question itself. What I mean by that in a critical reasoning problem is not the text at the top of the screen, but the question that appears underneath that text. If it's a reading comp passage, not the passage itself, but the question that appears right above the answer choices. If it's a math question, not all the given information, but the actual question itself at the end of the problem. You want to improve your focus on that question. Let me talk about how and why. It's fine to do a light skim of what's given first, and many strategic approaches recommend that. For example, in like a reading comprehension or in a math question. But making the question itself your main focus and making sure that you truly understand what you're being asked to produce is what I have personally found one of the highest leverage points that you can get as a test taker during the exam. Because even if you're looking at a question that's overwhelming you, or you're getting lost in, or is quite unfamiliar, if you can figure out what you're being asked, then you have a fighting chance on that problem. Similarly, if it's an easy question, but you still take the time to get crystal clear on what the desired result is, what the goal is for you, you're significantly less likely to make an unforced error and miss that question that you probably should have gotten right. On the flip side, if you don't understand the question properly, how can you possibly know what's important in the given data? How could you possibly be efficient on that question in terms of picking out what you need to answer it, what you don't need to answer it, et cetera? Focusing and having a strong attention to detail on the question itself is the foundation of efficient problem solving and speed. Once you're crystal clear on what's being asked, then you can engage with the previous point, which is making notes about what's given that will actually help you out. Now, again, this is going to require some experimentation and some time, but it's an extremely worthwhile investment if you're serious about getting a top score and you're not already getting that top score just because of your genetics or your natural ability. Obviously, if that's you, that's awesome. And you probably don't need to improve your attention to detail as far as the GMAT's concerned. But if you know that you could be scoring higher and you're frequently missing questions you know how to do, well, that's a great opportunity to engage with what I'm talking about here. So again, the key is this gradient mindset. How could my notes on what this question is asked improve? Sorry, how could my notes on what this question is asking me improve? How could I adjust my approach to focusing on the question to get a better result? Now, there's a lot of advice that I give people when I'm working one-on-one with them or in a group setting with them that helps with this, but that's usually very tailored to the individual. And so in a public format like this, where you and I are not really having like a real conversation, those are the no-fail questions that I would recommend asking yourself. How can what I'm writing down that helps me focus on this question improve? And how can I adjust my approach to get a better result? And then also, how can I improve at cataloging what is important that's related to this question? If you never stop improving your approach to understanding and leveraging what the question is asking in order to simplify your overall approach, you will be on the path to the fastest GMAT results possible. In quant, it's going to help you set up better equations and pick better strategies. It's almost like going to a business meeting that has an agenda versus that doesn't. You ever been to a business meeting that doesn't have an agenda? How do those usually go? So when you're getting crystal clear on the question, that's a little bit like setting an agenda for the meeting. It's going to make everything else that you do go a lot smoother. It's going to lead to better morale, better structure, better organization, better problem solving. In verbal, getting crystal clear and focusing on what the question is asking you and improving at that over time will help you focus on the key details and also pick the right strategy. That's particularly important for critical reasoning questions, but also very relevant to reading comp. In data insights, if you've engaged with data insights problems at all, you already probably have experienced what I'm about to say, which is it will help you figure out what's important and what's not and help you build speed over time. So that's step 2 of improving your attention to detail. Step 0 is developing a continuum or gradient mindset, moving away from the binary mindset when it comes to attention to detail. Step 1 is improving at taking notes. And step 2 is improving your focus on the question itself. Step 3 is to improve your process for double checking your work. Now, some of you might be getting nervous about the time all of this is going to take. Don't worry, I've got some advice for you on that in a moment. The real truth is, can I afford to not do these things? What's more important, finishing the section quickly or not missing questions you know how to do? Obviously, both are important. And we want to get the right balance. And I'm telling you that this will probably slow you down in the short run. But like most investments, it's going to speed you up in the long run. Like if I make a financial investment today, yeah, I have less capital to like do stuff with today. But I'm trading that for a more optimized overall life, if you will. So let's talk about double checking your work and becoming efficient at this. Make sure in quant that you're double checking each step as you go. If you just commit to double checking each step as you go of your quant work, that'll automatically improve your attention to detail on the quant section to just an absurdly competitive degree. I mean, so few people take the time to do this. And what happens when you build the habit of doing it is you get fast at doing it, which means you get fast at doing things well. And I don't know anyone who wants to be fast and bad at the GMAT. In verbal, you may want to consider a quick reread of the text or the question, depending on the situation, to validate that you've answered the right thing. Now, this can happen at different points in your problem-solving process. This could happen at the beginning. You might get a lot of value out of rereading questions or double reading questions. You might get a lot of value out of taking notes on a question and then double confirming that your notes are accurate. You might get a lot of value out of reading the question and then checking the text and then looking at the answers and then rechecking the text to validate your correct answer. And that can happen before you select the right answer or after. Again, this is going to be something you'll have to experiment with if you're self-studying and you're doing this all on your own. If you have a coach or a guide to help you with this, I would definitely recommend asking them about this, especially if they haven't brought it up yet. Hey, coach, what should be my approach to double checking and rereading things in the verbal section? Okay, how about for reading comp? How about for critical reasoning? Okay, how about for strength and weak in critical reasoning? Is there any finer point to that? An excellent coach should be able to guide you through that. DI is the same. Some things that I've found most helpful in DI, again, that would apply to everybody. If you and I were having a one-on-one conversation, I'd be able to tailor this a little bit more. But a quick triple check, even after you've picked the right answer, can be extremely productive in DI. You're going to run up against the clock probably a little bit more in data insights. So this is something that you might want to do only on specific types of questions. For example, data sufficiency would be a good place to do this because on average, those tend to be less time intensive than the integrated reasoning questions, which are multi-source reasoning, graphs, tables, and two-part analysis. But even in multi-source reasoning and two-part analysis, I've found some double checks to be extremely, extremely valuable. So the question to ask yourself is, could I be double checking more or could I be double checking better? Again, it puts you in that constant growth mindset. It's really going to improve your attention to the right details, but the key is over time. I already talked about this. Yes, all of this will definitely help you immediately in terms of accuracy, but you might not see the speed gains for a couple weeks or maybe even a couple months if you're really struggling with this. That is okay. Anyone who didn't just automatically start at a super high score and not need very much effort to get a top score, like anyone who's not in that camp, someone who really had to work on the exam, like myself, this is probably not going to be an overnight thing. I hate giving good people bad news, but the reason I'm bringing that up is if you understand the investment that's required, you're much more likely to have success with the process versus if you listen to some of these folks who seem to be a little disconnected from reality, in my experience, of like, yeah, of course we can get you a 400-point gain in 2 weeks. Or like, just here's your 6 week or 10 week study plan. I don't understand that. It's like if someone starting at a 400 whose goal is a 700 probably needs a longer study plan than 10 weeks. Can you make gains in 10 weeks? Sure, but is there a one size fits all study plan? No. I mean, unless it's adaptable to the individual. Are there study plans you can start with and then continue with other more customized plans? Yeah, for sure. But efficiency comes from customization. It's just something to consider within the learning process. Okay. I'm not saying that those 10-week or 12-week or whatever number of days study plans are bad. They definitely have their place and they can be very useful. But you want to recognize that your unique path is potentially going to be longer or shorter than a cookie cutter type approach. So if you're looking for a more flexible study plan that you can adapt to your personal situation, then please check out our episode on how to structure your study time from 2024. And that'll really, really help. If you want a little bit more detail on that, then you can go back to, I think it's 2019, our 2019 episode on our study plan. That's going to be potentially have some details for the old exam, not the current exam. So just giving that disclaimer. I think that you'll find the how to structure your study time in 2024 episode to be more than enough for these purposes. Let's just quickly talk about this, though. If you're worried about making a 2 month investment and improving your attention to detail so that you can get the highest GMAT score possible and get into the best business school possible, then maybe it's time to work a little bit on your patience and your consistency to see things through. I mean, it's just something to consider, in this whole area of gradient mindset. You might want to ask yourself, like, could my ability to endure discomfort improve? It's just something that I think you might find valuable friend to friend here. Something I struggled with a lot, just to be clear. I am far from perfect on that. And this is part of the reason I engage with and recommend the gradient mindset so much, is because I use it every single day. It's been very, very foundational for me. One thing that I can recommend here, if you struggle with investing time horizons, or if you feel you're impatient or you're like constantly rushing through these processes and not giving yourself enough time to really develop great habits that are going to give you a great performance on test day, I'd really recommend our past episodes on how to score high consistently. That's from, I think, 1 or 2 months ago. And then our episode on how to become more disciplined. And I think you will really, really like those two if you struggle with that. It's really important if you're struggling with that because you're going to be asked to make some extremely difficult long-term investments as a business leader in the future. I can virtually guarantee that if you own a company or you're in the C-suite or you own a P&L or you're leading a crucial team, which many of you aspire to do through this process, the name of the game for you is probably going to be investing on long time horizons. And so if you struggle with that within this process, this is a perfect opportunity to build up that skill set and lay the foundations for the technical skill set that you're going to be acquiring in business school. There's no better time than right now to build patience, to build mental fortitude, to be able to ride out the initial low so that you can get the long-term high that I think all of you really want. If you could taste it even for a minute, you would be like, yeah, I want some of that. I want that forever. And it is the good kind of high, let's put it that way. Again, the importance of this cannot be overstated. So if you need help with that, please go back to those episodes. If you're not struggling to invest a couple weeks to a couple months in improving your attention to detail, you're thinking about this the right way and you have a major competitive advantage. So definitely be grateful for that. That's the system. Develop the gradient mindset, improve your note taking, constantly ask, how could my note taking improve? Constantly ask, how could I focus on the question better and more efficiently? And then constantly audit, how could I improve at double checking my work? If you do those four things, your attention to detail is going to be amazingly competitive on test day, and you're probably going to be really, really happy with the result that shows up. Now, again, the last ingredient that I was just talking about here, and I do want to give this caveat, is it's probably not going to be an overnight thing. Again, some of you are that talented. You can just study for a couple weeks and knock it out. That's awesome. All of this stuff I just talked about will for sure help you. But don't be afraid, everybody, if it slows you down a little bit. That's the investing part where you're paying in to the fund. And then down the line, you get the massive speed gains along with accuracy that maybe you've been struggling to develop if you've been studying for a long time. That's the core of it. I do want to give a couple tips and then a little bit of extra credit, extra things you can engage with here if this is resonating with you and or you want to take it to the next level. So first tip is if you're thinking you don't have enough time to do this, then consider the cost of doing it wrong. Consider the cost of missing questions you know how to do. In fact, let's cut right to the chase. Which costs more time? Making a mistake in your setup, doing all the right math, and then having to recheck all your work, or just double checking as you go? Which one is going to cost you more time? Only you can answer that question, but for most of my clients, the answer is obvious. Keep in mind, there's a positive cycle associated with this as well when you do invest properly. It'll improve your confidence, it'll improve your energy, it'll improve your conviction, and it'll improve your momentum because you finish problems and you're like, yeah, I double checked every step of the way. I don't need to doubt myself on this problem. I got it. I had the right amount of doubt within each step. Ergo, I do not need to doubt my overall approach. I can, with conviction, pick A and move on to the next question. That's a positively reinforcing cycle, both during your prep time and during the exam. It's very, very powerful. The emotional, psychological game of the GMAT is tremendous for most of us. Maybe not all of us, but for most of us, that psychological component is extremely valuable, and it can work for you or it can work against you because when you are over doubting because you haven't developed a system for improving your attention to detail over time. That creates uncertainty. It creates the expectation that you're going to be very error prone, and that can be a very negative cycle, and that can work against you in terms of energy, confidence, conviction, etc. So what I recommend here is just start totally untimed with this, especially if it's been a problem for you in the past and you're in a program that forced you to use time pressure too fast, which is most programs on the market. Sorry, everybody. That's my opinion, and you can check my results if you want to. You want to start untimed, and then you want to try to beat your previous set's time. That's the healthy way to improve your speed without corrupting your process. And don't be trying to beat your 3 minute per question time by a whole minute at first. Try to beat it by like 1 second every time. And if you keep beating your previous time by 1 second, it's a mathematical certainty that you will eventually be more than fast enough. Again, good timing requires an investment, so don't be afraid to make that. And please, please, please don't become the people who are trying to get a payout without investing properly. That is really dangerous, everybody. It usually leads to disaster. It incurs a significant amount of risk, even if you quote unquote get away with it from time to time. And in my experience around my successful mentors, 9, 10, 11 figure people, let's just put it that way, they do not cut corners. Certainly not ethically, and they certainly do not cut corners in terms of what they give in advance if an opportunity is right. So this is an opportunity that you can transform your life forever, you can transform your family's life forever, you can transform your friend's life forever. It can be a difficult thing because you don't really understand how successful you can become on this path until you are on the other side of this. So sometimes it requires a bit of a leap of faith. But if that's you and you're wondering, I'd highly recommend that you start networking with people who have MBAs in your community. You can do it on LinkedIn, you can do it at your company if that's appropriate, or you can figure out different ways, networking events, etc. And obviously, you don't want to be rude and you want to obey the social conventions of the event. You don't necessarily need to be going up to everybody asking them how much money that they made last month. I wouldn't recommend that. But you can ask them about their successes, what they feel has been the biggest success that they've had, what have been the biggest wins for them and the people around them, and try to connect with people you admire. This is really, really valuable because inspiration is something that you can cultivate in your life if you're willing to put energy behind it. It just requires a little bit of energy and intention. Okay, hopefully I wasn't too far on the soapbox there, but I've seen a lot of corner cutting in people's GMAT prep, either because of bad instruction or just because of like negative beliefs, self-limiting or self-destructive beliefs about like how the process should go, how fast it should be. And that can create a lot of problems where we become our own worst enemies. That was definitely me in my first round of prep back in the day. And if you want to know more about my story and my struggles, it's at our website, thegmatstrategy.com. It's part of the How to Reach Your Dream GMAT Score in Half the Time video. Free, highly recommend. And if you don't like my story, you can skip over it. But if you are curious, I'm not going to go into the details here. But I've just seen a lot of people be in that mindset of trying to get without giving. And I think it is a very problematic mindset that, in general, in a wide variety of arenas, is going to work against you. It's definitely going to work against you with the GMAT. Instead, I recommend becoming the type of person who's more than willing to make that initial investment with the expectation that maybe not every single investment you make is going to pay off. But if you keep becoming a better investor over time and you keep making investments, you will reap the rewards of being that type of person. And it's going to give you better odds of getting into the school you want to get into. It's going to give you better odds of success, however you define that within school, and certainly going to give you great odds of success after school. If you want a good book on that, actually, I recommend the book What It Takes by Steven Schwartzman. He's the co-founder, excuse me, of Blackstone, which I think is one of the largest private equity firms in the world. Huge apologies if I'm wrong about that, but fantastic book and very compelling story about not cutting corners, honestly. So that investment piece that I was just talking about, it goes for problems and for following directions in your program of study. So this is my second tip is you can look at this on the micro scale, which is very valuable. And that's what I focused on because that's what most of you want and need help with. That's why you're here. But one thing that I'd like you to consider is on a macro scale, how good is your attention to detail at following the program you're engaging with? I've definitely touched on this in past episodes if you've been engaging with our content for a while. But it's something to consider and something to ask, could I improve that? How could I improve? Sorry, you can see how I struggle with the binary thing sometimes. How could I improve how good I am at following directions? This is something that I just didn't think it was an issue until I started working on it. And I realized that was probably my main issue as a young person that held me back. If I could have just been better at following the directions of the successful people around me, at just adhering to their advice, uh, man, I mean, it's, 100x everything basically at my age. But no use crying over spilt milk, right? Just make up for it now. But trying to impart to you some of the wisdom that would have helped me in my GMAT prep for sure Wish I had gotten a more structured plan from the beginning. I tried to self-study and that went very badly. But also, just from a larger perspective, it's something to consider. Now, you do have to do more diligence that you're listening to the right people if you're going to engage with that, because obviously following the wrong directions well is not going to help. But none of you are going to be bad at assessing your results. That's why you're here in the first place. And it's probably why you're part of the reason you're such a valuable business person already. So that's something that probably hits home. But again, a lot of you, just coming back to the top of the episode, a lot of you probably get a lot of positive feedback at your job, and that's why you're considering an MBA and growing in the first place, as you should. You probably deserve that feedback. You probably deserve more recognition than you're getting. I don't know. It's common in organizations. But it just examine it. How could I be better at following directions? How could I get better at giving myself constructive feedback? How could I be, I don't want to say harder on myself, but just a better advocate for myself, getting better results and having more structured, valuable approaches? How could I be more careful? How could I be double checking better? All the things I talked about today. Now, all of these things can be improved. That's the whole point of the mindset I talked at the top of the episode. And that should really help you on the exam as well as in the future, like I talked about. I'm really just repeating what I was just saying. So I hope you found those tips helpful. Again, just recapping those. If you feel like you don't have enough time to do this, consider the cost of doing it wrong. And then look at how your attention to detail could improve on a micro level on your problems that you're doing in your GMAT study, and also on a macro level with how well you are following the directions that you've been given by experts that you trust. So that's the main core of the episode there. I am going to give just a couple extra tips. I debated whether I should include these, so please give me feedback if you have thoughts about what I'm about to say. I'm just going to quickly rattle off a couple extra credit things you can do if you want. Number one is improve your review process after the fact on GMAT questions. Make sure you understand why right answers are right and why wrong answers are wrong. And the main problem I see with advice givers around this on the internet is their advice is way too general. They're just like, make sure you review stuff. It's like, okay. So what I recommend, and I spoke about this earlier, go back to the individual GMAT Focus Quant, GMAT Focus Verbal, and GMAT Focus DI episodes from a few weeks back. And I will give you some very structured can't fail review processes there that are much more specific than just, hey, make sure you learn stuff. Okay. If anyone says, hey, make sure you learn stuff, feel free to press them on exactly what they mean by that. Okay. After reviewing your review process, you might consider improving your energy, which really comes down to sleep, diet, exercise, downtime, and potentially supplements. I go long on that in the balance episode, how to become more balanced. And if you're a super achiever, I think you're really going to like that episode, because it's not like normal person, average person balance. It's not really what most people mean when they say balance at all. It's kind of like how to be unbalanced well, if I'm honest. um, that everything in that episode will really help you improve your energy. If you want to improve your attention to detail, then improving your review process and improving your energy and focus will greatly, greatly help with that. The next thing you can do to improve your attention to detail is read more. It's not going to be a foundational thing, but it is going to be a nice accelerator if you have the time and the energy for this. Any reading list that's recommended by a respected business leader in your field or someone you admire works well. I'm not going to give you my whole reading list right now, but if you want it, send us some feedback and I'll do my best to compile something that I think would make sense. Reading lists, I think, are very industry and skill set specific. So I want to be careful with that, but I'll do my best if you would find it valuable. Next thing you can do beyond reading more to improve your attention to detail is consider a meditation practice on a regular basis. Again, it's not going to be like the bedrock. I already gave you the bedrock stuff that's really going to work, like no matter what. But this can be a good accelerator for sure. There's very interesting research behind this if you want to dive deeper into that. If not, just pick it up and make it part of your study time. Something like Headspace or the Calm app can be a great quick starter. Just pick a 3 or 5 minute guided meditation either before or as a break in your study time, and I think you will really like it. Having said that, if it's not for you, just stop. It's really not critical, but it can help. Last thing in improving attention to detail is improving attention to detail in other areas of your life. I touched on this very briefly in the episode. I really don't want this to become like a life advice podcast, or I don't know, maybe that would be cool. I don't know. I don't know. Honestly, I haven't even thought about it, but I want it to remain extremely relevant and impactful for the GMAT. Let's put it that way. So I'm going to go quickly through these, but something you can do is improve at asking for feedback. You can either ask for feedback more often. Don't become annoying with it, everybody. That's going to work against you. But asking for feedback at the appropriate times, that's something that you'll need to develop social acuity around. You can even ask for feedback around how often you should be asking for feedback. So like for your manager or your boss or your supervisor, however you like to identify this person, you can say like, hey, how often would you recommend I ask you for feedback? Because I really want to improve and I really want to be great at this. People will really appreciate it when you ask for their opinions about that kind of thing. So don't be afraid to do that. And then please, please, please stick to their advice. Don't abuse the offer for feedback. It's not going to go well. Progress pictures can be really helpful. This can be for fitness, or it could be for your personal style, or it could be for things like your desk organization, or it could be things for like your house organization. I found that documenting things through photographs is a great way for me to track data over longer time periods than my memory would typically catalog. So, for example, I often take pictures of my office to try to make sure that I'm improving my organization, my focus, my physical environment. One of the things you can do to improve your discipline the most is make the physical space you operate in easier to be disciplined in. It's there's some very interesting research behind that. So I know the progress picture thing might be like totally out of left field. Like, what is this guy talking about, man? But it can definitely help, and it can also help with your scratch work. I used that a lot back in the day. And again, this is definitely the extra credit, super hyper optimizer like stuff here. Like if this is not landing for you, just by all means, feel free to skip to the next episode or go back in time to something that's more relevant for you. I already talked about this, but it's a great thing to come back to. Record your presentations and watch them back if giving good presentations is part of your work. It's relatively easy to do, and it's a lot of value can come from that. It can be very painful at the beginning. I will warn you that, hearing the sound of your own voice, seeing yourself without the mirror effect that we're used to seeing our own image in can be very disconcerting, but it pays off. Another thing you can do is just take professional development courses and level up skills either within your arena or in an arena you want to master, or it could just be hobby upskilling. I found a lot of value in engaging with my hobbies on a deeper level, things that I wouldn't necessarily consider myself a professional in, but just the process of learning has helped me become a better skill builder in my professional life. That's something to consider if it appeals to you. And I already talked about some of the other things that I have listed here. I'm not sure how that happened, but it's definitely a deep topic, improving attention to detail across a wide variety of arenas. You can definitely go over the line where it is now psychologically unhealthy attention to detail, which can go to the disorder level. If you are not sure where you are on the healthy spectrum, then please get professional help. That is a very worthwhile investment if you're worried about it or you're struggling with this. None of this is medical or psychiatric advice, by the way. That's all I got for you. That's the full beans. Please let me know if that's too much of a good thing. If you want if you feel like the tighter, shorter, more focused episodes are better for you, I would love to hear that. As always, my greatest hope is that this material will make your studies as easy and as painless as they can possibly be. If you want more tips and strategies for optimizing your performance on the GMAT, please head to our website, thegmatstrategy.com, and check out our free video presentation on how to achieve your dream GMAT score in half the normal time. It's 40 minutes long, and I can virtually guarantee that it will save you hours and hours and hours, potentially months and months and months of time. So again, coming back to the investment side of things, I worked extremely hard to make that the most worthwhile investment for you possible. In the meantime, this is a weekly show, so please subscribe if you are finding value in it. And please stay positive and stay consistent with your studies. You are very important to the future of business leadership, and I take my role in your success very seriously. I'll talk to you all soon.